Today, my presentation will be on climate change, North-South divide during climate negotiation. In late October 2024, Papua New Guinea, a small island state, shocked the world by withdrawing from the COP29. This sent a clear message to the international community about the urgency and also the need to have a bold climate action, especially for this small island nation which is facing existential threats for the rise of the sea level. The North-South divide, this refers to historical, economic, and development differences between the developed countries and developing countries. However, this is not a monolithic ensemble because in the global South countries, we have big economies such as China and India, which are emerging countries, and also the less developing countries such as Eswatini or again, Papua New Guinea. And this divide influenced the approach of these parties to climate negotiation, shaping responsibility, expectation, and outcomes. However, there are also non-party stakeholders, such as international organizations. We have the UNFCCC. It provides framework for countries to negotiate and implement climate action. We also have the IPCC, which provides scientific assessments of climate change, its impact, its mitigation and strategies. Its reports are used to inform policy decision and strengthen global climate negotiation. We also have NGOs, which are very important to advocates pushing for climate ambition. They also help to raise awareness and influence public opinion. We also have other key stakeholders, which are private sectors, and we have big oil companies. Their activities are really responsible of the current situation because banning of fossil fuel are a key element of the increased emission of greenhouse gases. We also have indigenous community who are the most affected for the current climate crisis. Now let's look at a historical context of climate change. First of all, we have the great divergence between the West and Asia. This was characterized by industrial revolution that began in Britain due to the presence of coal, and this coal-powered industry which led to great industrialization. And after coal, there was oil, then gas. So this actually led to a carbon economy, which is still very, very dominant to the actual world. However, these activities also increase the emission of greenhouse gases and leading to global warming level being very, very high. But this also led to scientific awareness. Around the 1970s, environmental concern about air pollution and climate change grew among scientific communities. And in 1988, the IPCC was formed, as seen previously, to establish and assess the evidence of climate change. And also, big oil set also their own campaign to mislead people. For instance, in 1977, an internal report by ExxonMobil showed very well that the company was aware that fossil fuel were responsible for climate change, but they still denying it, which is quite bad ethic because they knew the truth, but they're still lying. And also, we have the 1992 Rio Summit, which ushered cooperation with the COPs on climate change biodiversity. However, we also have global action. In 1987, the Montreal Protocol really helped the world to solve one of the major problems at that time, which was the hole on the ozone layer. So this protocol made sure that member states agreed to phase out CFC or chlorofluorocarbon, which are responsible for the ozone layer. And also we have the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, which enabled developed countries to agree to reduce the greenhouse gases. But however, it was shortcoming because the United States, the leader, in developed world in terms of emission, refused to sign it. However, in 2015, the Paris Agreement found a balance because both the US, China, and all the member states agreed First of all, for the developed countries to lead and for developing to also make an effort. This leads to this big question, which is how can the international community reduce greenhouse gases emission and limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial level as set in the Paris Agreement while balancing geopolitical tension and economic development needs of countries in the global south? So to answer this, first of all, we look at emission reduction targets. These are international commitments in which member states are committed to implement policies in their respective countries to achieve the set targets. For example, in 2015, countries in the north agreed to reduce their greenhouse gases, and also countries in the south. And the common objective was to make sure global warming will not go above 1.5 compared to the pre-industrial level. But however, there's different approach. One, let's look at the developed countries. They advocate for binding greenhouse emission targets by signatory state. This is due to most of them have reached the peak of their greenhouse gas emission, and they're less sensible to pollute more. Secondly, this position is not unanimous because some member states are not ready to cede their sovereignty to an international body, and that's why in Article 6 of the Paris Agreement stipulate that member states voluntarily agree to reduce the emission rather than mandatory targets. And this one of the reasons why the US also signing this Paris Agreement. And also they call on emerging countries such as China and India to take responsibility in climate change mitigation efforts. About developing countries on the side, one, they advocate for flexible measures to meet their climate obligation because most of them do not have adequate adaptation mechanism to help their population cope with the new obligation. So that's why some of them are still relying on fossil fuel. But saying that, we also have countries in global south which are members of OPEC plus. They rely heavily on oil, and they make sure that any efforts that are taking place in international talks to reduce or to phase out fossil fuel progressively, they always block it. So this is one of the major problems. And another perspective about developing countries, most of them prioritize economic development because they have high level of poverty. So that's why they cannot prioritize climate change over economic development. And they're also very jealous about their sovereignty. Most of them, or all of them, were colonized, and this new status as a sovereign state is very important to them. And also, they still have bad memories regarding the IMF structural adjustment program, which really affected them by imposing austerity measures. So they kind of reluctant to accept any aspect of international consensus because they kind of fear that this may also reduce their sovereignty. Another important aspect is come up with differentiated responsibility. This is really fundamental in the UNFCCC and Paris Agreement as it recognizes the different responsibility of countries. It reversed the Kyoto Protocol where only the North have to pay, but here the North have to lead and the South also have to voluntarily take action to reduce their emission. One, the North also agreed to contribute to the Green Climate Fund, but however, this is also controversial because we can see very well that here the North are paying climate change with dollars, while countries in the global South will pay with their lives. And also, there's technological transfer to countries to the global South because most of countries in the North are developed. Their know-how is very advanced compared to the South, so they can help countries in the South to advance. And also, the one about bold ambition to reach carbon neutrality before countries in the global south. This really, we can say example with European Union member state, which agreed to reach carbon neutrality by 2030, which is very, very bold ambition. Regarding global south countries, most of them advocate for just transition. This is whereby uh, they make sure that climate action does not come at the expense of economic development, particularly in low-income communities, which really need a lot of governments spending to help them to cope with the difficult life situation. And also they want capacity building here. They want expertise from the north and also to adapt it to the local condition so that they can be resilient and have a sustainable economic development model. They also favor national context-based approach whereby there's no universal uh, climate change model. So each country, due to its past, its history, its heritage, can cope with this problem. And now, as any other problem, climate change also has economics benefits. So let's see the economics of clean energy industry. By the early 2000, China was one of the most polluted countries in the world, and this made authorities to take action. And the rise of ecological awareness in China made the government to invest a lot. And in 2023, China invested $890 billion. This is equivalent to the GDP of Switzerland. However, this investment also led to ramification to the north. First one is the EV, where Chinese companies are very dominating the markets and making a lot of fear among Western automakers. And this has led to Western countries such as the US to impose 100% tariff in Chinese EVs. We also have the solar cells, as you can see down here. China controls around 80% of the global total of the global solar cell industry, which is quasi monopolistic. So this has also led to a lot of frustration among the global north. And we also have the battery industry. China controls the same, and also there's almost no other competitors in this field because among the top 10, top 7 are Chinese companies. To conclude, the global north countries are reluctant to address their historic greenhouse footprint. However, some are also taking bold action to make sure like we can reach closer to the Paris Agreement goal. And in the global south countries, most of them demand climate justice to be a resilient and sustainable economic development model, but some are also very spearheading about decarbonization of the economy, such as China. However, climate change is a global challenge and it requires cooperation in the global community. That's why it's very important that UN member states should pledge zero tariffs on clean energy technology so that we can accelerate the decarbonization. Thank you. And these are my references.